Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1967 Cleveland Indians MLB baseball season. Again, the tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball, and home games were played at Cleveland Municipal Stadium downtown on Lake Erie, where First Energy Stadium now stands, where the Browns play. The tribe had a tough year in 1967. They finished in 8th place with a record of 75-87, 12 games under 500, winning percentage of .463, 17 games out of first. The first place team was the Boston Red Sox, who were 92-70, winning percentage of .568. Second place, the Detroit Tigers, 91-71, only one game out of first. Third place, the Minnesota Twins, also 91-71, game out of first. Fourth place, the Chicago White Sox, 89-73, 3 games out of first. So it was a real pennant race, 4 teams, real close. Fifth place, the California Angels, 84-77. Sixth place, the Washington Senators, 76-85. Seventh place, the Baltimore Orioles, 76-85. 8th place, the Cleveland Indians, 75-87. 9th place, another tough year for the New York Yankees, 72-90. And in 10th and last place, the Kansas City Athletics, who were 62-99, winning percentage of .385, 29.5 games out of first. This was the last year for the Kansas City Athletics. The next year, they'd be in Oakland, California. Although later, the Kansas City would get the Royals team, Kansas City Royals. Now, the tribe attendance in 1967 was 662,980, down 240,000 from 1966, an average of 8,185 per game. The .463 winning percentage of the team was the worst since 1946, and the tribe attendance was worst in Major League Baseball. I'm reading a fine book. The title is Reggie Jackson, The Life and Thunderous Career of Baseball's Mr. October by Dan Perry, 2010. And Reggie Jackson was a rookie in 1967 with the Kansas City A's. He batted .178 with 1 home run, 6 RBIs in 35 games, and of course had a tremendous career. I read a fine book. The title is Spirit of '67, The Cardiac Kids, Albertos, and the World Series That Captivated America, by Thomas J. Whalen, 2017. Thomas J. Whalen wrote, quote, 1967 was an annus horribilis. War, racial tensions, urban riots, massive protests, and countercultural upheaval all marked this seminal point in American history. There was a major riot in Detroit, Michigan in July. 5 days, lasted for 5 days. 43 people died, 14 square miles, and $50 million in property damage. Detroit Mayor Jerome P. Kavanaugh said, quote, it looks like Berlin, Germany in 1945. The Beatles, a rock band in 1967, came out with a new album called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which became very popular. Langdon Winter wrote about that album. He said, quote, the closest Western civilization had come to unity since the Congress of Vienna in 1818. 1967 movie was The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman, became a popular movie. 1967 was Dick Williams' first year as an MLB manager, and he was the manager of the Red Sox, and they were called the Impossible Dream Team. There was a Red Sox game when left fielder Carl Yastrzemski made a great catch, and Ken Coleman, former tribe broadcaster, said, quote, Yaz dove in full stride and reached out with his glove in full extension, almost like Michelangelo's Adam stretching out for the hand of God. The Impossible Dream motto of the '67 Red Sox came from the musical Man of La Mancha, which was inspired by the novel Don Quixote by Cervantes. Carl Yastrzemski was the Red Sox leader and star, and the team had another nickname called the St. Louis Cardinals' '67 nickname was Albertos, which is kind of like a sort of a Spanish way of saying the birds. Of course, a cardinal's a bird. On August 18th, Red Sox slugger Tony Conigliaro was hit by the pitch in the face. He had a broken left cheekbone, and his retina was damaged. He was out for the rest of the season. Eventually came back, but he had vision problems, which shortened his career. The Kansas City Athletics' Ken Hawk Harrelson criticized owner Charlie Finley. As a result, he was released and signed by the Red Sox. The American League pennant race, the Red Sox, Tigers, Twins, and White Sox all were fighting in September for the pennant. Carl Yastrzemski for the Red Sox in September batted .391 with 9 home runs and 24 RBIs. Ed Lynn wrote, quote, Carl Yastrzemski was the sensation of the fall of 1967. He was right there with Robert Kennedy and the Beatles as the real thing. The Red Sox had another nickname, the Cardiac Kids, because they had late comebacks in games where they'd win games. Last day of the regular season, the Red Sox, Twins, and Tigers all had a chance to win the American League pennant. Boston sports writer Harold Case wrote, quote, Oh, give us the strength of Hercules, the courage of David, the wisdom of Pericles, the luck that has helped bring us this far to the edge of paradise, to the golden halyard that raises the pennant. Boston sports writer Bud Collins wrote, quote, Karl Marx, who said religion was the opium of the people, would have revised himself had he watched the Red Sox unite to throw off their 9th-place chains. The Red Sox are the opium right now, Carl, although you might classify them as a religion. Red Sox clinched at Fenway Park, and the Red Sox fans poured onto the field. Bud Collins wrote, quote, These were the zealots. They made Mao Zedong's gang of militant Red Guards and China's Cultural Revolution look like peace marchers. Yet this was a frenzy of love, not hate. The Kansas City Athletics in 1967 had a new uniform, green, yellow, and white, and they became the first team in pro baseball to wear white shoes. And everybody up until that time, all MLB teams wore black shoes. Now, with the Tribe, Vernon Stouffer was back as Tribe owner, and Stouffer was the Tribe owner from 1966 to 1971. Vernon Stouffer. Gabe Paul was back as general manager. Gabe Paul was the head of the Tribe ownership group from 1963 to 1966. And he was a Tribe general manager from 1961 to 1972 and from 1978 to 1984. Gabe Paul said that his biggest mistake in baseball was not hiring Bob Lemon to be the Tribe manager for 1967. Instead, he hired Joe Adcock. Jenny Paul, the daughter of Gabe Paul, wrote about years later when Paul went to the Yankees, worked as the president and GM of the Yankees. She wrote, quote, Dad's prediction about the inability of George Steinbrenner and Billy Martin to work together and with others proved correct. Gabe became the antacid in that relationship, and he found a way to bring out each man's strengths while reducing the corrosiveness of their weaknesses. Regarding her father, Jenny Paul wrote, quote, Fathers that don't show up when their daughters need them raise girls with an ache and a hole in their heart. Gabe Paul. The Tribe broadcasters, Jimmy Dudley was back on WERE radio. Dudley was a Tribe radio broadcaster from 1948 to 1967. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. In 1969, he was the Seattle Pilots broadcaster, and in the 1970s, he was a broadcaster in the minor leagues. Jimmy Dudley. His partner was Bob Neal on WERE radio. Neal was a Tribe TV and radio broadcaster from 1952 to 1953, and from 1957 to 1972. Bob Neal. Harry Jones was back as a Tribe TV broadcaster on WJW-TV. Harry Jones was a Cleveland Plain Dealer reporter from 1940 to 1947, and a Cleveland Plain Dealer sports reporter from 1947 to 1960. He was a Tribe TV and radio broadcaster from 1961 to 1977. Harry Jones. His partner again was Herb Score on WJW-TV. Score was a Tribe player from 1955 to 1959, and a Tribe TV and radio broadcaster from 1964 to 1997, and he's buried in Lakewood Park Cemetery in Rocky River, Ohio. Herb Score. Joe Adcock was the new manager of the Tribe in 1967. Adcock was a Tribe player in 1963, and he was a manager just for the Tribe in 1967. That was the extent of his MLB managing experience. He was fired after the season. Then he was a manager in the minors for 2 years. And then after that, he settled on his 288-acre farm in Coshada, Louisiana, raising horses. Adcock was hired to improve discipline among players. His most controversial move was platooning Leon Wagner and Rocky Colavito in the outfield, and this led to a lot of discontent. This meant Rocky wasn't even playing very much. On opening day, the Tribe played the A's with their white shoes, and Joe Adcock protested A's pitcher Jim Nash in his white shoes that it was a distraction to Tribe hitters, and the Tribe lost the game 4-3. They protested the loss, but American League President Joe Cronin disallowed that protest. Terry Pluto wrote, quote, "Joe Adcock, perhaps the most hated Cleveland manager, at least by the players, since Oscar Vitt in 1940. Carol Conklin wrote, quote, "Gabe Paul conceded that hiring someone with no managerial experience was a gamble, but he called it a darn good gamble. For his part, Adcock pulled no punches in describing what kind of manager he would be. Under his command, the Indians would emphasize mastery of the game's fundamentals. He promised to be tough in his leadership, and that he wasn't running a popularity contest. He kept that promise." And then after getting hired, Adcock said, quote, "Things are going to be different around here. There'll be no hanky-panky. And if I see things I don't like, the players are going to think that hell was turned loose backwards." One of his strict rules was that Latin players were forbidden from speaking Spanish to each other on the field. Joe Adcock. Clay Bryant was a new coach. Bryant was a Tribe coach in 1967 and 1974. He was born in 1911 in Madison Heights, Virginia, and died in 1999 in Boca Raton, Florida, at age 87. During his playing career as a pitcher, he was 32-20 with an ERA of 3.73 and 272 strikeouts. He pitched for the Chicago Cubs from 1935 to 1940. He was the National League strikeout leader in 1938. He had 6 years in the minors. In 1938, he won 19 games and had 7 consecutive shutouts. He had chronic elbow and shoulder pain, which ended his career at age 28. He was a longtime manager for the Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodgers in the minors, and he was the Dodgers pitching coach in 1967. He was a manager in winters for the Leones de Caracas in Venezuela, and he won the 1957 pennant to advance that team to the Caribbean Series. In the minors, he played for the Asheville Tourists, Birmingham Barons, Burlington Bees, Tulsa Oilers, and he was manager of the Montreal Royals and St. Paul Saints. Clay Bryant. Pat Mullen was a new coach. Mullen was a Tribe coach just in 1967. He was born in 1917 in Trotter, Pennsylvania, and died in Brownsville, Pennsylvania in 1999 at age 81. During his playing career as an outfielder, he batted .271 with 87 home runs and 385 RBIs. He played for the Detroit Tigers from 1940 to 41 and from 1946 to 1953. He's a two-time All-Star in 1947 and 48. He batted left and threw right-handed. He won an American League title in 1940 with the Tigers. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Army for 4 years, from ages 25 to 28. He was a pinch hitter. On June 26, 49, he had 3 home runs in 1 game. In 1953, he had 57 pinch hit at-bats. After he retired as a player, he was a scout and a manager in the minors. He was a coach for the Tigers and Expos. In the minors, he played for the Buffalo Bisons, Idaho Falls Russets, Jamestown Falcons, Lake Charles Skippers, and Little Rock Travelers. Pat Mullen. Del Rice was another new coach. Rice was a Tribe coach just in 1967. He was born in 1922 in Portsmouth, Ohio, and died in 1983 in Garden Grove, Ohio, at age 60. During his playing career as a catcher, he batted .237 with 79 home runs and 441 RBIs. As a manager, he had a record of 75-80 with a winning percentage of .484. He played for the St. Louis Cardinals, Milwaukee Braves, Chicago Cubs, Baltimore Orioles, and Los Angeles Angels from 1945 to 1961. He was the manager of the California Angels in 1972. Rice was an All-Star in 1953. He won 2 World Series titles in 1946 with the Cardinals and 1957 with the Milwaukee Braves. Rice was a relatively weak hitter, but valuable for his defensive ability as a catcher. 1947 with the Cardinals, as catcher, he guided the pitching staff to the lowest ERA in the National League and the most strikeouts. 1952, he led the National League in catchers in games played, putouts, base runners caught stealing. 1960 with the Cubs, he caught Don Cardwell's no-hitter. He was the first player to sign with the LA Dodgers. He was a longtime member of the Angels. First player to sign with the LA Angels, longtime member of the Angels organization. He was an Angels coach from 62 to 66. He was a manager in the minors for the Angels as well. 1971 in the minor leagues, he was manager of the year, according to the Sporting News. He worked as a scout as well. He died of complications from cancer. In the minors, he played for the El Paso Sun Kings, Rochester Royals, and Williamson Redbirds. Del Rice. George Strickland was back as a Tribe coach. Strickland was a Tribe player from 1952 to 1957 and from 1959 to 1960. And he was a Tribe coach from 1963 to 1969 and Tribe interim manager during parts of the 1964 and 66 seasons. George Strickland. Now the starting lineup, Joe Askew was the catcher. Askew batted .251 with 74 hits. He scored 33 runs, 12 doubles, 5 triples, 11 home runs, 34 RBIs, 22 walks in 86 games. Askew was with Cleveland from 1963 to 1969. And he won the 1967 Gordon Cobbledick Golden Tomahawk Award. Joe Askew. Tony Horton was at first base. Horton batted .281 with 102 hits. He scored 35 runs, 13 doubles, 4 triples, 10 home runs, 44 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 18 walks in 106 games. Horton was born in 1944 in Santa Monica, California, and he's 74 years old in 2019. During his career, he batted .268 with 76 home runs and 297 RBIs. He played for the Boston Red Sox and Cleveland Indians from 1964 to 1970. 1969 was his best season. He batted .278 with 27 home runs and 93 RBIs. 1970, on May 24th in a Tribe Yankees game, he had 3 home runs. On June 24th, he fouled off a folly floater, also known as the EFUS pitch, from pitcher Steve Hamilton. Then he asked for another one, and he fouled out. And after that, he crawled back to the dugout. On July 2nd, he hit for the cycle in a Tribe Orioles victory 10-9. On August 28th was the end of his career. He took himself out of, in 1970, he took himself out of a game in the 5th inning, the second game of a doubleheader, Tribe and Angels. And he made a suicide attempt that evening. The stress of the baseball life was too much for him. In his last game, he was 3 months shy of his 25th birthday. He never played again. Went back to California. Manager Alvin Dark at the time wrote about Horton's sudden exit. He called it, quote, the most sorrowful incident I was ever involved in my baseball career. Tony Horton. Vern Fuller was at second base. Fuller batted .223 with 46 hits. He scored 18 runs, 10 doubles, 7 home runs, 21 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 19 walks in 73 games. And Fuller was with Cleveland in 1964 and from 1966 to 1970. Vern Fuller. Larry Brown was at shortstop. Brown batted .227 with 110 hits. He scored 38 runs, 16 doubles, 2 triples, 7 home runs, 37 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 53 walks in 152 games. And Brown was with Cleveland from 1963 to 1971. Larry Brown. Max Alvis was at third base. Alvis batted .256 with 163 hits. He scored 66 runs, 23 doubles, 4 triples, 21 home runs, 70 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 38 walks, 107 strikeouts in 161 games. And Alvis was with Cleveland from 1962 to 1969. He played on the 1967 American League All-Star team, and he was the 1967 Tribe Man of the Year, Max ALVIS. Leon Wagner was in left field. Wagner batted .242 with 105 hits. He scored 56 runs, 15 doubles, a triple, 15 home runs, 54 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 37 walks in 135 games. And Wagner was with Cleveland from 1964 to 1968. Leon Daddy Wags Wagner. Vic Davalillo was in center field. Davalillo batted .287 with 103 hits. He scored 47 runs, 17 doubles, 5 triples, 2 home runs, 22 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 10 walks in 139 games. And Davalillo was with Cleveland from 1963 to 1968. Vic Davalillo. Chuck Hinton was in right field. Hinton batted .245 with 122 hits. He scored 55 runs, 19 doubles, 3 triples, 10 home runs, 37 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 43 walks, 100 strikeouts in 147 games. Hinton was with Cleveland from 1965 to 1967, and from 1969 to 1971. Chuck Hinton wrote, quote, "Tribe fans disliked me because they thought I had stolen Rocky Colavito's job. Rocky and I got along fine, but it put a lot of pressure on me and created a bad situation on the club." Chuck Hinton. Now, the bench players included Lee May, who batted .259 with 77 hits. He scored 43 runs, 20 doubles, 4 triples, 9 home runs, 27 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 26 walks in 115 games. May was born in 1934 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he died in Riverside, California in 2002 at age 67. For his career, he batted .274 with 94 home runs and 419 RBIs. He played for the Milwaukee Braves, Houston Astros, Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, and Chicago White Sox from 1959 to 1971. He was a well-known rhythm and blues singer. He was the lead singer for the LA-based doo-wop group Arthur Lee May and the Crowns in the 1950s. He had games with 5 hits in one game in 64 and 66. May said, quote, "I am the best singing athlete ever. I'm not bragging, it's a fact." He went to Los Angeles Jefferson High. He went to high school at Jefferson High School in Los Angeles, and he sang with future members of the Platters. May said, quote, "Baseball was my first love. I could always sing at 50, but I couldn't play baseball at 50. The greatest thrill is not getting to the major leagues, it is staying there. I played 13 seasons when they only had 16 teams, and I think that was a great accomplishment for me." There was another Lee May during this era, but without an E at the end of his end of May. Now Lee May said, quote, "When I was playing baseball all the requisite hours, I was a year behind in music, and I never got a chance to catch up with the music trend. Baseball and singing collided. When you're playing baseball and singing, it's a very tough career for both of those because you have to be at both places at the same time of the year, and you can't do that." After he retired, he worked for Amtrak. In the minors, he played for the Hawaii Islanders and the Boise Pilots. At age 16, he was part of the singing group, the Platters, and he was a soul singer. He helped the group record the group's first major hit, "Only You." Sam McDowell said, quote, "Lee was outgoing if you got him going. He would not start conversations on his own very often, but if you started to tease him a little bit, he'd interact with you with the best of them. He was a good guy." Lee May. Duke Sims was a spare catcher. Sims batted .202 with 55 hits. He scored 25 runs, 8 doubles, 2 triples, 12 home runs, 37 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 30 walks in 88 games. Sims was with Cleveland from 1964 to 1970. Duke Sims. Fred Whitfield played some first base. Whitfield batted .218 with 56 hits. He scored 24 runs, 10 doubles, 9 home runs, 31 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 25 walks in 100 games. Whitfield was with Cleveland from 1963 to 1967. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1970. Fred Whitfield. Chico Salmon was a utility player. Salmon batted .227 with 46 hits. He scored 19 runs, 13 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 19 RBIs, 10 stolen bases, 17 walks in 90 games. And Salmon was with Cleveland from 1964 to 1968. Chico Salmon. Rocky Colavito played some outfield. Colavito batted .241 with 46 hits. He scored 10 runs, 9 doubles, 5 home runs, 21 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 24 walks in 63 games. Colavito was with Cleveland from 1955 to 1959, and from 1965 to 1967. This was the end of his time in Cleveland as a player. He returned as a Tribe coach in 1973 and from 76 to 78, and was a Tribe TV broadcaster in 75 and 1976. Rocky Colavito was traded on July 29th to the White Sox for Jim King, Marvin Stale, and cash. Regarding the trade, Colavito's biographer Mark Summer wrote, quote, "The news devastated Colavito fans in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio. Colavito reacted, quote, I would have liked to have stayed my whole career in Cleveland. It was a strange year. None of this made any sense because they brought Colavito back. They gave up a lot to get him, and then he wasn't even playing much of the time. He was a good player, and it was really a disaster. Anyway, God bless Rocky Colavito. Pedro Gonzalez played some second base. Gonzalez batted .228 with 43 hits. He scored 19 runs, 6 doubles, a home run, 8 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 12 walks in 80 games. Gonzalez was with Cleveland from 1965 to 1967, and this was the end of his MLB career. Pedro Gonzalez. Don Demeter played some center field. Demeter batted .207 with 25 hits. He scored 15 runs, 4 doubles, 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, 6 walks in 51 games. Demeter was born in 1935 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and he's 84 years old in 2019. For his career, he batted .265 with 163 home runs and 563 RBIs. He played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, LA Dodgers, Philadelphia Phillies, Detroit Tigers, Boston Red Sox, and Cleveland Indians from 1956 to 1967. This was the end of his MLB career. He won a World Series title in 1959 with the Los Angeles Dodgers. From September 1962 to July 1965, he had 266 consecutive errorless games, which was an MLB record, until 1994, broken by Darren Lewis. Demeter is in the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. At one point he was unhappy in his career in 1954, but he was inspired by the 1954 World Series. He remembered, quote, when I saw Alvin Dark tithe the church from his 1954 World Series share, I realized that baseball could have a very real meaning. 1956, Demeter tied the Venezuela record with 16 home runs in a season. 1956, he was a Texas League All-Star. 1957, Demeter appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. He was voted on the All-AAA team. In 1958, he was in the U.S. Army. Demeter is the only MLB player to field an apple during a game. A fan threw an apple on the field. Now, he had made 2 errors and was being booed. And he said, quote, I'd made 2 errors, and here came an apple sailing out of the stands. So I just picked it up, took a bite out of it, and the booing stopped. 1964 with the Tigers on May 23rd in a Tribe Tigers game. Leon Wagner hit a long fly ball that hit Demeter's glove and went over the fence for a 3-run home run. He hit six of his home runs were on his wedding anniversary, 6 different seasons. It's pretty good. In 1966, he hit a home run on the day that his wife gave birth. And as he circled the bases, the organist played Rockabye Baby. 1967 with the Tribe on June 19th, in the bottom of the 9th, in Cleveland, he had a game-tying home run in the game the Tribe later won 2-1. After he retired, Demeter had heart trouble. He was a strong Christian. He was a youth director at the Baptist Church in Oklahoma City. During his baseball career, he did not drink, smoke, or curse. He rejected opportunities to endorse alcohol or tobacco products. After he retired, he started a pool building business. In 1973, he was the president of the Oklahoma City 89ers minor league team. In 1976, he ran for the Oklahoma House of Representatives but lost. In the minors, he played for the Shawnee Hawks, Mobile Bears, and Fort Worth Cats. Don Demeter. Gus Gill played some second base. Gill batted .115 with 11 hits. He scored 11 runs, 4 doubles, 5 RBIs, 9 walks in 51 games. Gill, or Hill, was born in 1939 in Caracas, Venezuela, and he died in 2015 in Phoenix, Arizona at age 76. For his career, he batted .186 with 1 home run and 37 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Indians, Seattle Pilots, and Milwaukee Brewers from 1967 to 1971. He's in the Venezuelan Baseball Hall of Fame, inducted in 2008. He played 19 years in Venezuela. Hill was a talented defensive specialist, a light hitter. In Venezuela, he played for the Industriales de Valencia and Navegantes de Magallanes and Cardenales de Lara. The 1970 Caribbean Series, he batted .387, and Magallanes won the series title for the first time a Venezuelan team had won the Caribbean title. After he retired, he was a manager for Águilas de Zulia. He was a manager in the minors for the Danville Suns and the Bluefield Orioles. In the minors, he played for the Buffalo Bisons, Denver Bears, Evansville Triplets, Hawaii Islanders, Macon Peaches, Missoula Timberjacks, Oklahoma City 89ers, and Portland Beavers. Gus Hill. Richie Scheinblum played some right field. Scheinblum batted .318 with 21 hits. He scored 8 runs, 4 doubles, 2 triples, 6 RBIs, 5 walks in 18 games. And Scheinblum was with Cleveland in 1965 and from 1967 to 1969. Richie Scheinblum. Jose Vidal played some outfield. Vidal batted .118 with 4 hits. He scored 4 runs, had 7 walks in 16 games. And Vidal was with Cleveland from 1966 to 1968. Jose Vidal. Willie Smith was a utility player. Smith batted .219 with 7 hits. He had 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, a walk in 21 games. Smith was born in 1939 in Anniston, Alabama, and died in 2006 in Anniston at age 66. For his career, he batted .248 with 46 home runs and 211 RBIs. He was a pitcher and an outfielder. He had a record of 2-4 with an ERA of 3.10 as a pitcher. Smith played for the Detroit Tigers, Los Angeles Angels, California Angels, Cleveland Indians, Chicago Cubs, Cincinnati Reds, and Nankai Hawks in Japan from 1963 to 1973. He started his career as a pitcher and converted to the outfield. In 1963, in the minors for the Syracuse Chiefs, he led the International League in winning percentage with a record of 14-2, a winning percentage of .875. He died of a heart attack on opening day 1969 with the Cubs at Wrigley Field. Smith had a dramatic extra inning walk-off home run, and the Cubs won that game. In the minors, Smith played for the Knoxville Smokies, Portland Beavers, and in the Dominican Republic for Águilas Cibaeñas. Willie Smith. Jim King played some right field. King batted .143 with 3 hits and 21 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had a walk in 19 games. King was born in 1932 in Elkins, Arkansas, and died in 2015 in Elkins at age 82. For his career, he batted .240 with 117 home runs and 401 RBIs. King played for the Chicago Cubs, St. Louis Cardinals, San Francisco Giants, Washington Senators, Chicago White Sox, and Cleveland Indians from 1955 to 1967. On April 15, 1958, he played the first MLB game in California, San Francisco Giants against the Los Angeles Dodgers. In '64, he hit for the cycle. Also in '64, he hit 3 home runs in 1 game. After he retired, he worked for the telephone company. The minors, he played for the Vernon Dusters and Toronto Maple Leafs. Jim King. Ray Fosse was a spare catcher. Fosse batted .063 with 1 hit and 16 at-bats. He struck out 5 times in 7 games. Fosse was born in 1947 in Marion, Illinois, and he's 72 years old in 2019. For his career, he batted .256 with 61 home runs and 324 RBIs. Fosse played for the Cleveland Indians, Oakland Athletics, Seattle Mariners, and Milwaukee Brewers from 1967 to 1979. He was a 2-time All-Star in 1970 and 71 with the Tribe. He won 2 World Series titles in 73 and 74 with the Oakland A's, 2 Gold Gloves in 70 and 71. He He was the tribe's first ever draft pick in 1965. Fosse has been a TV and radio broadcaster for the Oakland A's since 1986. The 1970 All-Star Game in Cincinnati, Fosse got hurt in a collision with Pete Rose at home plate on the last play of the game when Rose scored the game-winning run. Gaylord Perry won the Cy Young Award with the Tribe in '72. Perry said, quote, "I've got to split it up and give a big part to my catcher, Ray Fosse. He kept pushing me in games when I didn't have good stuff. He'd come out and show me that big fist of his when I wasn't bearing down, the way he thought I should." 1974 with the Oakland A's, there was a clubhouse fight between Reggie Jackson and Bill North, and Fosse tried to break it up and got hurt real bad. He had a crushed disc in his neck and was out for 3 months. In '77 with the Tribe, he caught Dennis Eckersley's no-hitter. He was a member of the inaugural Seattle Mariners team in '77. In 2001, he was ranked in the top 100 Cleveland Indians of all time. The minors, he played for the Reno Silver Sox and Portland Beavers. And in Venezuela, he played for Navegantes del Magallanes. Ray Fosse. Gordy Lund played some shortstop. Lund batted .250 with 2 hits and 8 at-bats. He scored a run, had a double in 3 games. Lund was born in 1941 in Iron Mountain, Michigan, and he's 78 years old in 2019. For his career, he batted .261 with 12 hits and 1 RBI, just with Cleveland in 1967 and the Seattle Pilots in '69. In 11 years in the minors, he played for the Hawaii Islanders, Portland Beavers, Salt Lake City Bees, and Vancouver Mounties. Gordy Lund. The pitching staff, the ace pitcher was Sam McDowell, who was 13-15 with an ERA of 3.85, 37 games, all starts, 10 complete games, a shutout, 236 1/3 innings pitched, and 236 strikeouts. McDowell batted .183 with 15 hits. He scored 5 runs, had a double, a home run, 6 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 28 times. McDowell was with Cleveland from 1961 to 1971. He was second in the American League in strikeouts behind Boston's Jim Lonborg. Sudden Sam McDowell. Steve Harrigan was 14-13 with an ERA of 2.62, 30 games, 29 starts, 15 complete games, 6 shutouts, 223 innings pitched, and 141 strikeouts. Harrigan batted .164 with 11 hits. He scored 7 runs, had a home run, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, and struck out 26 times. Harrigan was with Cleveland from 1965 to 1972. He played on the 1967 American League All-Star team. And in 1967, a Cleveland magazine named Harrigan one of the most eligible bachelors in the city. Steve Harrigan. Louis Tiant was 12-9 with an ERA of 2.74, 33 games, 29 starts, 9 complete games, a shutout, 2 saves, 213 2/3 innings pitched, and 219 strikeouts. Tiant batted .254 with 18 hits. He scored 9 runs, had 3 doubles, a home run, 10 RBIs, 2 walks, and struck out 23 times. Tiant was with Cleveland from 1964 to 1969. Louis Tiant wrote, quote, "It's a long season, full of stress, and you need ways to keep yourself from going crazy when you're going bad. On every team I played on, I tried to be a guy who not only played hard, but also knew how to have fun. Taking my cigar in the shower always made guys laugh. I'm not sure why." On August 22nd, Tiant had 16 strikeouts against the Angels. Tribe won that game on a walk-off home run in the bottom of the 9th by Joe Askew, 3-2. Louis Tiant. Sonny Siebert was 10-12 with an ERA of 2.38, 34 games, 26 starts, 7 complete games, a shutout, 4 saves, 185 1/3 innings pitched, and 136 strikeouts. Siebert batted .135 with 7 hits. He scored 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 3 RBIs, and struck out 13 times. Siebert was with Cleveland from 1964 to 1969. Sonny Siebert. John O'Donoghue was 8-9 with an ERA of 3.24, 33 games, 17 starts, 5 complete games, 2 shutouts, 2 saves, 130 2/3 innings pitched, and 81 strikeouts. O'Donoghue batted .100 with 4 hits and 40 at-bats. He scored 3 runs, had a home run, 4 RBIs, a stolen base, 3 walks, and struck out 16 times. O'Donnell was with Cleveland from 1966 to 1967. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1971. John O'Donnell. Orlando Pena was the closer. Pena was 0-3 with an ERA of 3.36. 48 games, 1 start, 8 saves, 88 and a third innings pitched, and 72 strikeouts. He batted 8 times, did not have a hit, and struck out 6 times. Pena was born in 1933 in Las Tunas, Cuba, and he's 85 years old in 2019. For his career, he was 56-77 with an ERA of 3.71 and 818 strikeouts, and 1,202 innings pitched. Pena pitched for the Cincinnati Redlegs, Cincinnati Reds, Kansas City Athletics, Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Indians, Pittsburgh Pirates, Baltimore Orioles, St. Louis Cardinals, and California Angels from 1958 to 1975. What a career. He had 40 saves in his career. Currently, he's a scout with the Tigers. In the minors, he played for the Daytona Beach Islanders and the Tucson Toros and the Miami Amigos. In Cuba, he played for Almendares and the Havana Sugar Kings. In Venezuela, for Navegantes del Magallanes and the Tiburones de la Guaira. Orlando Pena. Stan Williams was 6-4 with an ERA of 2.62. 16 games, 8 starts, 2 complete games, a shutout, a save, 79 innings pitched, and 75 strikeouts. Williams batted .091 with 2 hits and 22 at-bats. He scored a run and struck out 13 times. Williams was with Cleveland in 1965, and from 1967 to 1969. On August 10th, Williams was a starting pitcher in the Tribe Orioles game. He had pitched a complete game with 13 innings pitched. He struck out Louis Aparicio 5 times and Frank Robinson 4 times. The Tribe won that game 2-1. He had 15 strikeouts. Williams said, quote, "Of all the games I pitched in the big leagues, one of my best, maybe the best. I struck out 2 Hall of Famers 9 times. Stan Williams. George Culver was 7-3 with an ERA of 3.96, 53 games, 1 start, 3 saves, 75 innings pitched, and 41 strikeouts. Culver batted .250 with 1 hit and 4 at-bats and struck out twice. Culver was with Cleveland from 1966 to 1967. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1974, and then he played in Japan in 1975. George Culver. Steve Bailey was 2-5 with an ERA of 3.90, 32 games, 1 start, 2 saves, 64 2/3 innings pitched, and 46 strikeouts. Bailey batted 10 times, did not have a hit, walked once, and struck out 5 times. Bailey was born in 1942 in Bronx, New York, and he's 77 years old in 2019. For his career, he was 2-6 with an ERA of 3.88 and 69 2/3 innings pitched. Bailey pitched for the Cleveland Indians from 1967 to 68. In the minors, he pitched for the Tulsa Oilers, Dubuque Packers, and in Venezuela for Cardenales de Lara and Estrellas Orientales. Steve Bailey. Bob Allen was 0-5 with an ERA of 2.98, 47 games, 5 saves, 54 1/3 innings pitched, and 50 strikeouts. He did not bat. Allen was with Cleveland from 1961 to 1963, and from 1966 to 1967, and this was the end of his MLB career. Bob Allen. Gary Bell was 1-5 with an ERA of 3.71, 9 games, all starts, a complete game, 60 2/3 innings pitched, and 39 strikeouts. He batted 15 times, did not have a hit, and struck out 6 times. Bell was with Cleveland from 1958 to 1967. On June 4th of 67, Bell was traded to the Boston Red Sox for Tony Horton and Don Demeter. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1969. He won 12 games for the Red Sox in 67, and he helped them win the American League pennant. He was Game 3 of the World Series starting pitcher for the Red Sox. Bell said, quote, "It was such a big thrill for me to finally be in a World Series. I remember Guy Lombardo and his orchestra playing in center field before the game." Regarding the trade of Gary Bell, Louis Tiant said, quote, "It was tough to lose a guy like Gary Bell who was dependable, whether starting or relieving, and was hilarious in the clubhouse. Gary Bell. Ed Connolly was 2-1 with an ERA of 7.48, 15 games, 4 starts, 49 1/3 innings pitched, and 45 strikeouts. He batted .182 with 2 hits and 11 at-bats. He scored a run, had a double, and struck out twice. Connolly was born in 1939 in Brooklyn, New York, and died in 1998 in New Canaan, Connecticut at age 58. For his career, he was 6-12 with an ERA of 5.88, 118 strikeouts, and 130 innings pitched. He pitched for the Boston Red Sox in 1964 and the Tribe in '67. He went to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. In the minors, he played for the Olean Red Sox and Portland Beavers. Ed Connolly. Bobby Tiefenauer was 0-1 with an ERA of 0.79, 5 games, 11 1/3 innings pitched, and 6 strikeouts. He did not bat. Tiefenauer was with Cleveland in 1960, 65, and 67. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1968. Bobby Tiefenauer. Dick Raditz had no decisions and an ERA of 6.00, 3 games, 3 innings pitched, and 1 strikeout. He did not bat. Raditz was with Cleveland from 1966 to 1967. Early in the season, he was traded to the Chicago Cubs for a player to be named later. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1969. Dick the Monster Raditz. Jack KRALICK was 0-2 with an ERA of 9.00, 2 games, 2 innings pitched, 1 strikeout. He did not bat. KRALICK was with Cleveland from 1963 to 1967. The Tribe sold Jack KRALICK to the New York Mets on May 1st. He was involved in a bad car accident the next day on the Shoreway in Cleveland and never played again. Terry Pluto's favorite player as a boy, Jack KRALICK. And finally, Tom Kelly had no decisions and an ERA of 0.00, 1 game, 1 inning pitched, and no earned runs allowed. He did not bat. Kelly was with Cleveland from 1964 to 1967. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1973. Tom Kelly. After the regular season, the 1967 World Series was played. The National League champions, St. Louis Cardinals, defeated the American League champions, Boston Red Sox, 4-3. It was a rematch of the '46 World Series with the same result. It was the 8th Cardinals title. Hall of Famers in the World Series included umpire Al Barlick for the Cardinals, Red Schoendienst, the manager, Lou Brock, Steve Carlton, and Orlando CEPEDA, and Bob Gibson. And for the Red Sox, Dick Williams, the manager, and Carl Yastrzemski. It was the first Red Sox World Series since 1946. The MVP of the series was Bob Gibson of the Cardinals, who was dominant, and he pitched Game 1 at Fenway Park. Gibson had 10 strikeouts in a complete game, 2-1 Cardinals victory. Jose Santiago for the Red Sox started and pitched a good game and hit a home run. Santiago was the first Puerto Rican to start a World Series game. Lou Brock went 4 for 4 and scored both Cardinals runs. In Game 2, Carl Yastrzemski had two home runs, helping Boston win 5-0. Jim Lonborg had a complete game 1-hitter. He had a no-hitter into the 8th inning. During Game 2, Lonborg had a golden tinfoil horseshoe in his hip pocket, which had been sent by a fan. He said, quote, I knew it couldn't be bad luck. Game 3 was in St. Louis. Cardinals starting pitcher Nelson Briles won 5-2. Carl Yastrzemski was hit by the pitch, had a sore leg, and went hitless the rest of the game. Game 4, the Cardinals won 6-0, and Bob Gibson was lights out. That put up the Cardinals 3-1 in the series. Gibson had another complete game. Roger Maris had a 2 RBI double. Tim McCarver had an RBI, and Orlando CEPEDA had an RBI. Carl Yastrzemski said, quote, it still takes 4 games to win it. We're going to come back, believe me. It's going to be tough, but we can do it, and we will do it. In the first 4 games, Lou Brock batted .500 with 8 hits and 3 stolen bases, a triple, 2 doubles. Brock said, quote, if a man is motivated, he'll do anything, regardless of what it costs. Game 5, Red Sox won 3-1 behind Jim Lonborg, who threw a 3-hit complete game, and Ken Harrelson had an RBI single. Cardinals rookie Steve Carlton got the loss. Game 6 was at Fenway Park in Boston, and the Red Sox won that game 8-4 to tie the series 3-3 games all. Gary Weslewski was the starting pitcher for Boston, and he said, quote, "There were stories in the newspapers comparing my chances with General Custer's, but I didn't let it bother me. Rico Petrocelli, Carl Yastrzemski, and Reggie Smith all had home runs. Game 7, Red Sox starting pitcher was Jim Lonborg on 2 days' rest. Dick Williams said, quote, "I was praying for one last miracle." However, the Cardinals and Bob Gibson, they had Bob Gibson pitching. Thomas J. Whalen wrote, quote, about the Cardinals before Game 7, quote, "They were still Albertos, a unique fusion of talent, drive, and attitude that had few peers in the history of baseball. The Red Sox had been lucky to have made it this far. Now it was time to pull the plug on Boston's aptly named impossible dream." Cardinals won Game 7 7-2. Dal Maxfield said, quote, "Superman couldn't have beat us today." Thomas J. Whalen wrote, quote, "Bob Gibson appeared as lethal as kryptonite to Red Sox batters." Gibson had 10 strikeouts. He had a 3-hit complete game to win his 3rd World Series game. His catcher, Tim McCarver, said, quote, "Bob Gibson challenges everybody. Heck, he'd challenge Michael the Archangel if he had to." Gibson also had a home run in the game. Cliff Keen of the Boston Globe wrote, quote, "The glass slipper that everyone thought belonged to Cinderella wound up on her stepsister's foot." Julian Javier had a 3-run home run for the Cardinals. The last out of the game, Bob Gibson struck out George Scott. Roger Maris of the Cardinals hit .385 and led at a series-leading 7 RBIs. Lou Brock hit .414 with 12 hits and 7 stolen bases. In St. Louis, after the game, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch recorded, quote, "The celebration began as soon as Bob Gibson struck out George Scott. It went on into the night. Tons of scrap paper, ticker tape, and torn telephone books were tossed from the windows, and the long-awaited revelry started in the streets." Now, Roger Maris developed cancer and died in 1985 at age 51. Shortly before his death, he said, quote, "Other than my health problem, I feel very good about my life." Now, near the end of his career, Bob Gibson said, quote, "I'm 36 now and not quite as bad as I used to be. Success hasn't changed me. It's just that I'm older. You don't fight quite as much as when you're younger. It's easier to live with things now." Now, the MVPs in '67 in the American League, Carl Yastrzemski of the Red Sox. And Yastrzemski won the Triple Crown. He batted .326 with 44 home runs and 120 RBIs. MVP in the National League, Orlando Cepeda of the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cy Young Award winners in the American League, Jim Lonborg of the Red Sox. And in the National League, Mike McCormick of the San Francisco Giants. So that's the story of the 1967 Cleveland Indians. It was a tough year, especially having Rocky Colavito on the bench and then getting traded for very little. God bless the guys who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1967 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Second World War veterans, Korean War veterans, and Vietnam War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue Electricity, Severance Hall stalwarts, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Christmas Story House happy people, Museum of Contemporary Art maniacs, Cleveland Botanical Garden goers, Old Arcade admirers, Playhouse Square seers, Settlers Landing Park purists, Western Reserve Historical Society wonders, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse renegades, Cuyahoga Valley National Park pioneers, Great Lakes Science Center supporters, Holden Arboretum enjoyers, and Cleveland Public Library learners. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, Gladiators, and Fusion Rule. And Spiders, Bulldogs, Rosenblums, Barons, Rams, Crusaders, Force, Crunch, Lumberjacks, and Rockers rule in memory. Cleveland, City of Champions. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. It's been 71 years since 1948. This is our year. 2 game-winning home runs the last 2 days by Carlos Santana. Amazing. Anyway, you might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History, with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.